Hello again and welcome. We're back on road layout and road conditions. I just explained the position on junctions and cross junctions. The road layout is road conditions. So let's say, for instance, you're traveling in the outskirts of Dublin around the airport, maybe going through Swords. And you're about to go under a bridge. There's a sign explaining about the traffic and the possible turns and everything. And that's one thing that you always should be alert to, because like you see on the graphic, you are on a two-way road. All of a sudden the two-way road becomes a one-way road with several options. Either you go straight or two lanes going straight, and then one of the lanes you have the options to either make first left turn and second left turn. You're coming from down here and all of a sudden you're faced with this. So always be alert, have your Google Maps on, and really pay attention, especially going through big cities, put it this way. So if you happen to be on this lane, you can't cut all the way across to get in here. So you're supposed to get on this lane and either take the left turn or this left turn, because otherwise you can cause an accident. Position on a motorway and dual carriageways. Well, position on a motorway, maintaining your central position on your lane on the left side of the road. Now, on a dual carriageway, you have the option to stay on the left lane or the right lane. Your obligation is to be on the left lane at all times, or most of the time. So let's say, for instance, you're going at the speed limit, but you're approaching someone that's driving below the speed limit. So if you have an opportunity, you will overtake. So that means that you put your signal on, shoulder look to the right, look at your mirror first, signal on, shoulder look to the right, move to the right lane, overtake that individual. You're a certain distance away from that car, one or two car lengths. You put your left signal on and come back to your lane. You see, when you have several lanes going to the same directions, every time you switch lanes, you're supposed to look at your mirrors, indicate, and shoulder look and change lanes. That's the safest way. And if you have to come back again, do the same thing and come back. If you are overtaking somebody on a two-way road, you look at your mirrors, put your right signal on, overtake that person, but then the only thing you do, you just cancel the signal and come back. There's a difference between being in a multitude of lanes going in the same direction and being on a two-way road. Because if you put your left turn signal, which is obligation to come back to the left lane anyway because you're on the wrong side of the road, we could be giving a misleading information saying that not just you overtook the guy, but you're pulling over. Why did you overtook the guy in the first place? But that's how the person that you overtook will interpret things. So when you come back to your lane, you just cancel your right signal and come back to the left lane. But if you are in the city or whatever place that you have a multitude of lanes going to the same direction, every time you switch lane, you indicate. And when you come back to the previous lane you were at, you indicate. So always be conscious of these things. Turn to the correct position after overtaking or avoiding an obstacle or obstruction. So how to avoid riding too close to the curb, drains and roadside gutters, straddling lanes, so don't straddle, and riding too close to the center of the road. Why? Because let's see, This is your lane. This is the center of the road. That's the opposite lane. Well, sometimes, especially on country roads, roads that don't have shoulders, you may find some semi-trucks, really wide trucks or lorries, whatever you call it, that would be straddling on your lane. And if you're riding on the center of the road, there's a good possibility, especially coming around the corner, that you could collide, with that lorry. That's why it's so relevant for you to, when you're riding on the road, that you maintain your position at the center of the lane, because for some reason something like that happens, you have a way to escape. You have time to either move all the way to the left, and go by that big lorry and not be killed by it. Keep that in mind. Rear observations and mirror work. To understand the use of mirrors in taking the appropriate necessary observations. Observations will include shoulder checks such as lifesaver, which is an expression that I don't like to use unless it's a real threat. There's the difference between saving a life and making an appropriate observation only, including such as lifesaver look when dealing with blind spots or any situation not currently covered by the mirrors. This will include applying the observation signals, maneuvering position, anachronism, speed, look, routines. You are supposed to have a notion, a 360 degrees notion of what's happening in front of you, beside you, and behind you. When you're about to perform, essentially a mirror work, you look at your center, and then you look right, look center, look left, look center. When you look at your mirrors, when you're supposed to look at your mirrors, it's to keep your head focused at the center of the road. But when you look at your mirror, you look right, look front, look left, look front. In other words, you take your eyes off the road the least amount of time possible, especially in the city when little dogs can all of a sudden cross the road, and little babies and boys or girls, crossing in front of you at the same time. So if you, have a bad habit of looking right and go straight to left, you're taking your eyes off that center of the road for too long. So when you perform an observation, you look either center to the left and then back to center, and then to the right and back to center, whichever direction you want to start with. But always from one to the other, include one look at the center of the road as well. How important the mirrors are on a motorcycle, the information you can get with proper use of mirrors, and also their limitations. Well, that's why the mirrors will only give you so much. So that's why every time you put your signal on after you looked at your mirrors, you do a shoulder look to check your blind side. But when you do a shoulder look, it's not like turning your neck and looking left or looking right. You're holding the handlebar and you turn your torso. So it's a 90-degree look, shoulder look to the left, shoulder look to the right. But, your upper body changed. Your hands are holding the handlebar straight. Because, you can't look and turn and look and turn, because you're going to kill yourself in the process. So that's why it's so important that you wear motorcycle clothing and not too many layers that will impede your ability to do this or this. Moving your hip to the right or to the left. That's very relevant as far as the difference between leaning with the bike and counterweight leaning. Like you lean the bike, but your body stays up, especially in slower speeds. So know the difference between the use of observations such as look over your shoulder, shoulder checks, lifesaver look. How to use your mirrors to get used to using the rear observations to cover blind spots, and always know what's happening behind you as well ahead of you. Taking rear observations only at the appropriate time, good timing, and how to avoid losing control of the motorcycle while taking a look behind and steer the correct course. Like I was saying, you maintain your arms, the motorcycle is straight, but you turn your torso to the right, turn to the left, but my hands are at the same place. Okay? Speed. To understand the importance of riding at the correct speed to suit the weather, road, and traffic conditions. Always stay within the speed limits. Don't try to go faster than the traffic would allow you to. And adjust your speed according to conditions. So if you start drizzling, you adjust the speed. If you start raining really hard, you lower your speed even further. Lashing rain, coming down really heavy in buckets. My suggestion is to find a place to pull over and wait for the rain to pass. Maintain proper progress and keep up with the normal flow of traffic. Never ride at a speed beyond your ability. There's a place in America called the Tail of the Dragon, and it's in Tennessee. And people without proper experience as far as going inside the turn, going to the turn, and then inside the turn and coming out of the turn. And if you don't know that, at some point you're going too fast and you end up at a place where you're not supposed to be. You either lose control and push yourself off the road, or you collide with somebody coming in the opposite direction. So always know your speed limitations. Objective 8. Anticipation and reaction is to understand the need to anticipate and react to changing road and traffic conditions. At the beginning of this video, as I said, what constitutes a good motorcycle rider is to know where to position him or herself on a road. Second, to make the necessary observations at the appropriate time. And third, to be able to anticipate it and react to whatever dangers that present themselves to you. So, the importance of reading the road, taking forward observations, anticipating what might happen ahead and reacting accordingly, including dealing with emergency service vehicles. If you hear an ambulance behind you, get out of the way. Find a way as best as you can to get out of the way and let the emergency vehicle go by you, either a police car or an ambulance or a fire truck. Reading the road well ahead, constantly scanning the environment, forward planning and defensive riding, good anticipation and reaction to hazards, and how to remain in control. Never lose your cool. Just be cool, cool and collective. Rationalize things up all the time. So if you have a threat, think about all the possible things that you can do to avoid colliding. Either you slow down, move a little bit to the left or move a little bit to the right, depending where the traffic is coming from, especially going through town. And it's like we call, you're a BS detector. Pardon me the rough expression. But always be alert, always be observant, always be suspicious that every person in front, behind, or beside you is an idiot. So don't take anything for granted. So you're going through the town and you're passing by a junction. Supposedly, if somebody, for instance, is sitting in traffic and you're about to pass by that person, you don't know if that person is paying attention or is in, some kind of a fantasy land or whatever it is, or listening to music, completely distracted. And then all of a sudden that person for some reason accelerates and could jump in front of you. So if you're passing by the person, it appears to you that person is not in tune with the road, blow your horn. Wake him up. He's going to be kind of upset with you, but at least you save his life and your life. You know, that kind of thing. And the other thing is that as a preventative, it could be at the center of the lane, but you know, you're suspicious of somebody, especially coming from the left. You just move a little bit to the right, because you never know. Especially if that person, for instance, is coming up to a full stop, coming down the road, but he's coming, or she's coming kind of fast. And you don't know if that person is going to stop behind the white line, okay, which, by the way, if you stop beyond the white line, you fail the test. So make certain that you stop behind the white line. And that person, you know, unfortunately did not. You know, the whole bumper and half of his front of his car is beyond the white line, which happens to be exactly where the middle of the road is, and he or she would break your leg, your left leg. So that's why when you feel suspicious about something, you move a little bit to the right, you know, and that person will stop in the middle of your lane, but you go by that person, which means that you avoided an accident. And it would be a good opportunity to show the middle finger to that person, which I don't recommend that kind of behavior, but you definitely think about it. That's pretty much the kind of a frame of mind, especially going through town. Sometimes, you know, when you're going on a countryside and a deserted kind of road, you can probably relax a little bit. But as far as starting to arrive at some kind of a populated area, you know, turn your alert signals on. Weather conditions, including modal choice and route planning. To understand the serious effects that weather conditions, both hot and cold, can have for a motorcyclist. The effects of adverse conditions when riding a motorcycle. So, ice, black ice, and snow. If the forecast has that in the news, don't get out of the house. But sometimes, you know, you have a beautiful day like today, not as beautiful as today because the temperature is absolutely gorgeous. But sometimes, even in the winter time, you have a very bearable, very tolerable sunny day, nice day. But all of a sudden, when, you know, hours later after you left your house, the weather turns. And you don't know if you have snow, black ice or whatever, or what do you call it, hail on the road. So if you see it, slow to almost a full stop, and as you're about to go over it, pull the clutch, cut the traction, take the traction away from the wheel, from the rear wheel, and go very slow and as straight as you can possibly. Don't try to lean the bike or turn while you're going over those conditions. And once you're beyond it, even if you're sort of on the shoulder or whatever it is, do that, and then once you're beyond the danger, then bring yourself back to the road and resume your course. Wind, especially crosswinds or passing HJVs or buses. Well, now, that's a kind of an interesting situation. Sometimes you go for a ride and the winds pick up really high, you know, in the afternoon. So you're talking about 20, 30 mile an hour gusts. That so much so that when you're riding a motorcycle, you have to sort of lean against the wind to maintain the bike riding at the center of the road, because if you relax, that wind will push you. Because you have to remember that your body acts like a sail. And when you have a lot of wind, if you have wind coming from the front, no problem, because you have the handlebar to hold you on the bike. But when it's coming on the side, it's a different ball game. No panic. All you have to do is apply a certain technique to keep things under control and don't drop the ball. So what I'm saying is that in a situation that you're on the road, the wind is gusty either from the right or from the left, especially from the left, because if you're on the two-way road, the wind could blow you towards the opposite lane, and somebody could come in the opposite direction and collide with you. So obviously you don't want that to happen. So what happens is, to resist the wind, you kind of hang on to the handlebar a little bit tighter. And if it's coming from the left, you sort of lean your body towards the left a little bit and kind of lower your body a little bit, so you can resist that wind and keep things under control. But let's say, for instance, you have a lorry, a long semi-truck in front of you going really slow. And you notice that there's a very good window of opportunity for you to overtake. And so you can resume your speed limit, per se, on the road. The thing that happens, the phenomena that takes place, is you're about to go by that lorry. Because of the height of the lorry, all of a sudden, as you're beginning to overtake it, that side gust is blocked by the lorry, and you have that sense of relief as you're overtaking. But when you're about to pass the cabin, the lorry cabin, the truck cabin, you're going to be hit with that blast as you clear out of the perimeter of the truck. So as you're about to do that, you grab the handlebar tough, lean into the right, because you're going to be hit with that blast of wind as soon as you finish overtaking that truck. And so you're hanging in there, and you overtake the truck and give about a 2-car length, because you don't want to really kind of cut in front of the truck and startle the truck driver. So you just give a little bit of a distance, and don't put the left lane. All you have to, the left signal, all you have to do is cancel your right signal and come back to the lane you're obliged to ride at. Mist and fog. Sometimes you try to go from Sligo to Carrick and Shannon, and midway, especially in the fall, there are some low clouds and the fog is so dense. Well, a lot of the older bikes don't have hazard lights, meaning to be able to blink all 4 lights at the same time, because that's what you should do when you hit the fog. So essentially what you do is, if you don't have the hazard lights, the trick is, because your profile on the motorcycle is very small, and the little red light on the back of your bike, for the brake lights, the running lights, it's really small. So your profile is quite diminished, for somebody that is approaching you from behind kind of fast. So what you do is you put your turn signal to the right, like you're going to overtake a lorry, but you don't overtake the lorry, put it this way. And because there's no lorry to overtake, but you put your right turn signal anyway, stay on the left lane side of the road at a reduced speed, because that will make you visible for somebody that's approaching you. And when that person approaches you and resumes a position behind you, you can cancel the turn signal and let him put the blinkers, the hazard lights behind you, to prevent somebody else from colliding with him or her. My advice is that when you purchase a motorcycle, that you purchase something more of a later model year, put it this way, that would have those things, as a feature on a motorcycle. Glare from strong sun. Okay, well, when it comes to glare from the strong sun, sometimes, you're in a situation that it's around sundown and you're on a road, and all of a sudden you get that ball, that big of a sun, and doesn't matter if you're wearing sunglasses or not. If you try to block with your hand, you still can't see the road. My best advice is that you pull over, wait for the sun to rotate for about 15-20 minutes, and then get back on the road. That's my honest to goodness advice that I would give for you to take. Because if you try to challenge it, you could be asking yourself for trouble. There's nothing like, you can't fight with the sun. Warm weather, insects, flies, causes blotches, smears, and viruses. Bugs, they have a Japanese kamikaze tendency to commit suicide on the visor of your helmet. and then the little skeletons they built on the visor, and they're kind of bony, and it's a real pain in the neck. Sometimes, if you don't have a big visor, just the sunglasses, make sure that you keep your mouth closed, because sometimes you could swallow one. But if you do, you get a dosage of vitamin A, so it's not that bad. But the story is that you always bring a bottle of water with you and one of these guys here, okay? And I'm talking a microfiber fabric. Always bring it with you. Always bring a bottle of water. Even in the winter time, you do that. So you pull over and wet the fabric, and it's sort of a damp, put the fabric over the sunglasses or over the visor or goggles or whatever that you're wearing to protect your eyes, and let it kind of soak. And then when things kind of soft up, you wipe it off, okay? That's the best advice I can give. So if you don't have a saddlebag on your bike, always have a backpack with you and a bottle of water in it and a fabric. So for those, unusual circumstances. And of course the bugs, they start in late spring and they stay around until late fall. So for most of the year, you should carry, those things with you anyway. Riding at night. Well, riding at night is pretty much, you assume a more conservative mode. Make sure that your headlights are on the secondary roads, that your bright lights, that your high beams are on. Not when you have cars, going by you, you don't put the high beams on them. But if the road is deserted enough, put them on. It's your own safety, absolutely. A car is coming in the opposite direction, put your low beams on, go by it, and then high beams back on again. Absolutely. Following cars at night, give an extra second at least. So from 2 seconds of distance between you and the person in front of you, add up 1 second on dry road nights. On wet roads, 4 to 5 seconds. Keep as much distance as possible. Importance of self-analyzing one's own nighttime riding, driving capabilities. To be honest, if you don't have an experience, if you're not seasoned enough, I would avoid it. And if you're riding at night, make certain to start with it's a clear night or a dry night, but don't ride on a wet night, okay? Especially for a beginner. How to plan and reduce risks? Well, let's say for instance, you use a major highway to come back home to. And it's lashing rain outside, and you're about to return home. And so try to think of an alternative route for you to go back home that won't require you to accelerate to higher speeds. It will take you longer, but it's a lot safer. So that's how you plan to reduce risks. Consideration of modal choice. Well, I never quite understood what a modal choice means, but I think is a sort of an ultimate alternative for you to stay safe and be able to finish your journey. So I say, for instance, you're coming from a long trip, a couple 100 miles long trip, and night falls, and you're getting absolutely tired and you've been on the road for 6-7 hours or something to that effect, and if you can have a cup of coffee and be able to get back home, fine, or maybe a glass of orange juice, that will wake you up. You might not be able to go to sleep, but definitely will keep you up until you get back home. Or you find yourself a B&B, a motel, or whatever you call it, pull over, spend the night, even if you're 20 miles away from home, spend the night, because when you're extremely tired, that's when accidents happen. And you don't want that to happen to you. So that would be my understanding of a Modal choice as a last, option, put it this way. Now, fatigue, to understand the risks and consequences of riding whilst suffering from fatigue or stress. What is fatigue? Being dead beat tired from either a long trip or working a very long day, or sleep deprived from not sleeping well the night before, or hungover. Main causes of fatigue, well, I already just said that. Risks associated with fatigue or stress, well, you lose your ability to judge things up, your reflexes are compromised, your judgment is compromised, and ultimately the stress could be high enough that, depending what kind of a health situation you have, it could promote a heart attack. So you don't want to push the envelope, that much. Methods of combating fatigue. Well, you can pull over, take a 15-minute nap somehow, some way, or go to a motel and stay the night, or go to a truck stop or a petrol station, pretty much kind of like have a cup of coffee, relax, try to doze off a little bit, close your eyes for about 10-15 minutes. Those things will be very helpful to allow you to finish your journey back home. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.